Hello everyone, another video here on the channel, and today's topic is women and casual sex. I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to use the comment section. Yeah, this topic of casual sex, no matter how feminist or how promiscuous society is at the moment, when it comes to women in practice, okay, I'm going to explain the difference between how women view casual sex in theory, in practice, and after casual sex, alright? But anyway, no matter how depraved, promiscuous, or feminist society is, women will always act and speak with a tone of neutrality or even against casual sex, right? On talk shows like those on Globo, Fernanda Lima's show, Amore Sexo, Fatima Bernardes, and other progressive spaces, they'll advocate that women are free and can sleep with whoever they want and all that, and in fact they are, right? There's no one controlling women's lives, right? They're free to they have free will to make whatever choices they want, right? And I'm not here to make any moral judgments. I'm here to analyze the effect this causes through the stimuli and rewards in the environment, right? And to explain how this affects, the great collapse that's coming in the 20s, the era of single women, right, where you'll never see so many single women left on the shelf in Brazil and in several Western countries as you will in this decade of the 20s, okay? It's going to be a real holocaust of single women, just like we've talked about in previous videos. But about casual sex, right, which is a nuance that hasn't been specifically discussed here on the channel yet, women, they tend to look down on casual sex, don't they? If I'm having a conversation with one of your friends or a coworker or someone from college, whatever, they'll say things like, "Oh, there has to be something more," or those Tinder bios. They say, "If it's just for sex, don't even bother liking." They love to put those on an app that's specifically meant for casual sex, right? They'll say they want to get to know you first and all that, and so on, right? There's nothing wrong with a woman not liking casual sex. The problem is that a woman has casual sex and then regrets it and says it wasn't casual sex, which is what I'm going to explain in this video right now, okay? So first, talking about men, right? For men, casual sex is absolutely neutral and in many cases positive. There have been few cases, I've seen many good arguments that casual sex can be harmful for men in the long run, but it's really in the very long run in some specific cases and so on, right? Yeah, but generally speaking, what really messes men up is pornography. Casual sex is neutral and in many cases even positive for men, right? Because it's the release of a primitive instinct, in a society without moral or religious restraints, etc., where the man is able to achieve what he was in a way biologically programmed to do and has been doing for 7 million years, which is to try to pass on his genes, right? And to ejaculate with as many partners as possible. Yeah, I know it even sounds ugly to say it like that, right? It's not a very nice thing to hear, but anyway, I'm here to describe human behavior, not to make judgments, right? So, casual sexual encounters possess this intricate nuance, right, in which the man will typically act in a rather neutral manner, right? Or he might even ultimately end up experiencing some profound thoughts of discouragement or perhaps even a sense of demotivation following such casual sexual interactions. However, for men, this particular feeling is often very fleeting and transient, right? The side effects are very minor for men when it comes to casual sex. Yeah, with women, what happens is this: women are biologically programmed for motherhood, okay? Even if they don't want to be and so on, even if they have access to contraceptives and in some countries even legalized abortion, right? And that's something that can't be changed through speeches, sophistry, cultural revolutions, etc. What you can do, which ends up messing up society as a whole, is to introduce stimuli and rewards into the environment that mess with, women's minds. So when a woman has casual sex, and in the vast majority of cases she knows she's going into a casual encounter, well, the first, second, third, or even fourth time, it might not do any harm. Also, because there's the issue of the release of the hormone oxytocin, which is a very powerful hormone in women, released during childbirth or when they're with a man they consider a super alpha, right? Yeah, in the long run, that's very detrimental to a woman's health. There are already several studies on women's health. There are uh, analyses, meta analyses that you can find out there that will prove this, right? So women have a certain discourse in society, except in those more provocative environments, right? But in society as a whole, at work, with friends, with family, where she says she likes to have sex with the right person, right? And this doesn't happen in practice for various reasons. First, because they've put it in her head that she can do as much as a man can, right? And it's funny because women think that all men have casual sex readily available, which, as we always say here on the channel, in Brazil, it's no more than 5, maybe 10% if you're being really optimistic, right? Of men who have sexual abundance. But generally, it's 1 to 5% because Brazil is very poor and unequal, just like we always say here. And women, because of this, believe that they're emulating a general widespread male behavior, right? But that's not the case. If all men had good financial conditions, then yes, for sure, most men would be having sex with as many women as possible. But since 95% of men, right, live in a sexual desert or depend on the occasional stroke of luck or have to pay for escorts, what women claim in defense of casual sex doesn't hold up, right? That doesn't hold up. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. It has no basis in reality whatsoever. Yeah, what's funny about women when they have casual sex is that this niche of 1 to 5% of men who are sexually abundant, whether it's because of financial power, which is most cases, or some guys are actually good looking and said you don't have that much money, but sometimes they stand out socially. For example, a guy in a certain group at university, he's the alpha there, right? Yeah, sometimes a professor, you know? Sometimes the guy doesn't have an opai, doesn't have a profession where he's super well paid, but he has really good status in a certain niche, right? So the thing about casual sex, some men, right? Actually, every man who has the opportunity for it, okay, a lot of those listening here will relate to this, right? And others won't, right? They manage to get casual sex through a kind of simulation, right? A simulation that they're interested in the woman, correct? So what happens is this: the man goes there and seduces the woman to go out with her, right? He will pretend that he likes the same hobbies as her. He'll talk about the stuff that they like, the stuff they like. Actually, the topics of conversation between the two sexes are pretty lousy, okay? And that's not just the women's fault, right? Yeah, Netflix, astrology, what do you like to do, etc., right? The quality of conversation has gotten much worse, right? Back in the days of MSN, even Marseille, you had better topics to talk about, right? Because people talked more about the real world and not the virtual world, right? Nowadays, it's just exchanging memes, sending pages to follow, stalking, talking about other people's lives, and so on, right? Yeah, the quality of conversation has really declined in relationships between men and women. So men have realized, right, that women are in the game, they're on fire, for casual sex. And the guys who have access to that, the ones women are interested in, they're going to simulate a kind of pseudo romanticism just to get to go out with the woman and either go to her apartment or bring her to his place, right? And the guy is going to have sex, right? And from the start, he already knows he's going to bail afterwards because there are very few women that men actually consider good for a relationship. But obviously, the guy isn't going to tell the woman, "Oh, I just want sex." Because in that case, even the super alphas, if they say that, the woman will run away, right? Because she allows herself to be used. But you can't say it out loud. It has to be something hidden. She has to realize it later so she can feel sorry for herself and post reflective quotes on Instagram. Yeah, then you might say, oh, but women are being deceived. It's unfair to say that. Actually, no, right? Because the woman knows, okay, from the very beginning that she's being used for casual sex. It's just that because some men are really irresistible, and Alita talked about this in his works, right? That women have a kind of brain glitch. They become paralyzed in front of certain men, the top 1%, the top half percent, and some guys below that level, but who have good persuasive power, a good image, a good body, right? A high position, even if they're not some international star, these guys know how to play the game. And if the game is in their favor, why would these guys defend a conservative society if they can sleep with 50 high level women, 100 women a year, right? So it doesn't make sense, right? So the conservatives here, the criticism I always make is that wanting conservatism today is like thinking video rental stores are coming back or that Netflix is going to go bankrupt. Amazon Prime, it's not going to happen. You might feel nostalgic for that time, the time when you went out for ice cream with your girlfriend and whatever, when you went to the movies with a girl, when you exchanged SMS messages and got butterflies in your stomach, right? Those times aren't coming back, okay? So it's better to accept reality right away than to keep, if the ship has started to sink, it's better to jump off than to keep praying it won't go down, right? Because it is going to sink and it's already sinking. So for men, even those men who aren't in this abundance, this harem, this hookup game, right? Yeah, in a way, as guys get older, they end up doing really well, right? As long as they invest in personal development and don't waste time chasing after exceptional women and girlfriends, etc., right? Even though they might exist, it's not a good choice to make when you're under 30. So try to, achieve your independence first and then maybe think about looking for an exceptional woman. And if you don't find one, I guarantee you that a single man between 30 and 40, 50 years old is going to be a billion times happier than single women over 30, okay? Men have a lot of hobbies. So, yeah, men end up managing just fine. So the woman, getting back to the topic here, right? She has casual sex with these guys who, from the start, only want sex with her, right? She is summarily disposable and then she regrets it. And then she has the nerve, women have the nerve to talk about it with other men, usually some guy, some big simp she keeps in the friend zone, a guy she's stringing along, a guy whose sexual market value is lower than those she has casual sex with, right? Who wasn't even questioned. Yeah, women, like if there's one thing women don't have, it's remorse towards average or beta men, okay? You might be in love with a woman, okay? That woman, even so, what is she going to do? She's going to tell you about the guys she's sleeping with. She'll make a point of posting that she's out to dinner with someone. She'll post a little piece. Women love to do that, right? Going out to dinner and posting a part of the guy's body to create that little mystery, posting a bouquet of flowers without tagging who sent it and so on, right? So she'll tell you it wasn't a casual hookup, right? Then you'll ask, now, why didn't it work out? She'll then say a bunch of vague things, right? A bunch of abstractions, right? Oh, we were different. Oh, he wasn't ready for a relationship. Oh, whatever, right? Meanwhile, she was dying to date this guy. She just couldn't reel him in. And 90, no, more than 95% of them won't be able to, right? And she'll say, it wasn't a casual hookup because she'll say, oh, I spent 2 months talking to him, so it wasn't casual sex. Whereas for men, right, the men who have easy access to casual sex, we know how this game works, right? Yeah, you talk to one here, another there, someone else over there, and you end up managing to sleep with them, right? Obviously, not all of you are going to sleep together because the standards are really high, okay? Even high level guys, middle and upper class guys are getting rejected a lot too. But anyway, these women would come, yeah, when they're frustrated, when they've been rejected by some guy above their league, they go to these other guys, right? So in a woman's mind, casual sex doesn't exist because if she talked to a guy for a month on WhatsApp, it means they had something, a connection, but it just didn't work out, right? So in order not to be labeled as so that other men and women don't think she's a slut, she'll say that. She'll never admit it was casual sex. So it's always the others who have casual sex. Women love to say they're not like the others, right? They claim to be so feminist, so liberated, but when it comes to getting themselves off the hook, they say they're not like the others. Do you think it's like that with me? And so on. Man, I'm gonna say something that's a really hard truth to swallow. Something I think every man has gone through. I have too, and I think every man, even guys at the top, have been through this because no one is irreplaceable, right? If we look at various celebrities, there's the case of Whindersson Nunes, for example, who recently got screwed over twice, right? Yeah, man, a woman with everything she doesn't do with you, not even in your wildest erotic dreams, okay? She does it casually with some super alpha guy who's in the picture, okay? So you have that dream where you wake up and it feels like you're in another reality, like you're in a historical porn movie, those high production fancy porn films with that woman you like, the one you have a really strong sexual desire for, and she doesn't even care about you. Everything you dreamed of doing with her, she does with other guys, just with a few monosyllabic words, okay? Yeah, that's a really hard truth to swallow, isn't it? So, to wrap up the video, as we're getting to the end, casual sex, women will defend it in environments where they won't be judged, where there are only activists and progressive people, right? Yeah, in those environments, she'll defend the idea that everyone does what they want. In front of society, she'll say she's against it, that you need to have something with someone, right? And with the guy who's after her but she doesn't think is good enough, she'll say that if anyone finds out, she'll claim it wasn't casual sex. So then a smarter guy comes along, hooks up with her, and leaves. She'll say they had something, that it was a connection, and so on, right? And after the woman's post casual sex phase is like this. She keeps lamenting and posting that you have to value yourself and all that, while in reality, she devalued herself, right? Because as Attitude Alpha says, right, Saitama, the one who holds the key to sex, promiscuity, and the whole order of debauchery in society, is the woman, right? If women decided to keep their legs closed, and by that I don't mean only having sex after marriage, but just postponing sex, wanting to get to know someone, if they acted the way they say they do, the way they claim to like, society would be much less degenerate. It would still be degenerate, but much less so, okay? If they really only had sex after building a friendship, a connection, etc., which is how relationships tend to have a higher chance of working out, but they don't, they won't wait for that. Obviously, men are going to try for sex at all costs because male libido is unstoppable, right? And anyway, they're going to give in according to the man's social status in society, okay? So there is a hierarchy, a pyramid according to which women choose based on that pyramid. For average and lower value men, she will yes, simulate the most conservative behavior possible. For the medium high and high value men, she might even pretend to play hard to get, but she'll still give in very quickly, right? And those guys will leave. And for the super alphas who are at the very top, just a monosyllable, an emoji, any little thing, and they'll do anything for these guys, okay? And then they'll always claim like she goes there, sleeps with a guy once with a super alpha, and she'll say it wasn't a casual hookup. So it's like this. It's even weird to say it. It sounds like that meme women use of Nazare doing math because it's funny. It's contradiction after contradiction, right? They defend it in progressive circles in society with the average guys from the friend zone say they're against it, but if they're found out, if they're questioned about casual sex, they say it wasn't casual sex and give casual sex to the guys at the top and then end up suffering, right? Because casual sex, the abandonment is very harsh for women. Men are already used to it. Whether he's an alpha, beta, MG Tau, a simp, whatever, he's already used to women disappearing. So it's something that, yes, men typically do not encounter this particular problem, isn't that right? Therefore, that is the essential message concerning casual sexual encounters, alright? We will certainly see you again next time.